Hello, and welcome to this week's Talking Codswallop. Now, for this episode, it's a bit different because I'm flying solo, because Gemma's a bit under the weather. But it's pretty good for me because I have been lucky enough to have two wonderful, beautiful women on who are authors as my guests. So really, I'm not failing. But, I do miss you, Gemma, and please get well soon. So we have a returning guest who I've been lucky enough to have on before, which is Christen Stovall, but we're also this time joined by her co-author, Jennifer Sanders. So, ladies, how are you doing today?
Very well, thanks.
Pretty good. It's always fun to be back.
So what I'm going to say, Christen, is can you give us a bit of a rehash of you and your work for the tadpoles who are what we nickname our listeners?
Sure. I am a fantasy author. I have 4 solo books that I've written that are completely high fantasy. And then I also have a completed Victorian era fantasy / romance series called the Fae-Touched Chronicles with Jen.
And Jen, that's the perfect kind of handover for you. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and your work? But you're doing some of my work for me already, so this is the sort of guest I love to have on.
So I have the series that Christen mentioned, the Fae-Touched Chronicles, and then I have 4 other books in the wind with another co-author because I cannot write solo. I don't have the executive function. I have a little bit of problem with ADHD.
So I'm going to throw out a question to both of you, and it's entirely up to to either of you who wants to answer first. But tell me a bit about your backgrounds for both for both of you. In fact, backgrounds. Where did you grow up? What did you want to do when you were younger?
Well, I grew up in Kansas on a small farm. Yes, there's no place like home. And when I was really young, I wanted to be an actress. And then kind of as I got to my late teens, I started playing with writing. And then I met Jen actually when I was around 19. And that's when it really started taking off.
True. I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania where I still live. I always wanted to be a writer. So spent some time overseas. And then I met Christen online. And we hit it off, and there we were.
Yep.
Now, that intrigues me because you were saying you met online. So where and how did you meet online?
Well, we met through a group that at the time was called the Julie Fianna Archive, was it?
Yeah, it was Archive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was a Lord of the Rings group based around a fan fiction that the authors Julie and Fianna had written, and it had such a following that they created a group for it. And we both happened to join. And then there was writing within the group that took on a life of its own.
Oh, the shenanigans.
So many shenanigans. And then, sometimes you just hit it off with certain people. Chris and I started chatting, and then we started, chatting outside of the group. And then we started visiting back and forth. And then we started going to Disney together, and then we started writing.
It's been sort of a 22-year conversation.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to back it up so you don't get away. When you say the word shenanigans on this podcast, you don't get away. We're just like,
I'm going to let you field that.
You can't just park that. I've got to know. We need to have answers. What shenanigans did you get up to?
I mean, it was mostly shenanigans that we were writing. And then when we would visit each other, there was just absurd amounts of ridiculousness.
we don't hold each other back particularly. No.
Oh, and then we went to Chanticleer Gardens and took some pictures there. I think that's actually my profile picture.
It would be even more interesting to have Gemma on, because then I would have 3 fiery redheads that I'd be dealing with. And if you ever listen, I do kind of poke fun at the redhead scariness and the soul freeness, but it is only a joke.
No, it's true.
But yes.
Yeah. Blondes may have more fun, but redheads have the most.
I'm saying absolutely nothing. So if we park work as in the author work, what kind of jobs have you had before you got into the writing?
Well, I worked in early childhood education for a while. And it was fine. It just wasn't for me. And then I actually worked in home health and I took care of a disabled child for a time. And then after that, my client passed away and I sort of needed a break. So I took a job where I was cleaning an office at night because I needed to be able to have a job where I wasn't emotionally invested, because it was really difficult to lose that client.
I mean, it would be, absolutely. It's like you take care of them like they're your own. I guess I mostly work in computers and have done so for a long time. Currently, I work as a web content developer, but I work from home because I have 2 kids, and my younger child, who is not that young, she's going to be 28 this year, but she is physically disabled and requires care. So I work from home.
And yet still a ball of awesome. She's still a ball of awesome.
She's pretty awesome. Yeah. Well, they both are. They're both pretty
They
cool.
are. They are.
But so anyway, yeah, I work from home and have done for, I don't know, she became disabled at 15. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, it was sort of it was like a gradual, and it gradually intensified.
So obviously you have the challenges of you have childcare, and you also have the challenges of a job, a normal kind of job. How do you balance that with being an author?
That is a bold statement. You're assuming that gets balanced.
I was going to say, clearly you're doing it very well.
I don't sleep.
Sleep's a myth.
Sleep. The sleep's for the week.
Look at this. You think I sleep? This is coffee. This is the really strong coffee as well.
Jet fuel.
It's the high test stuff.
Paint stripper. I obviously know how you found each other. I know about the writing that you do. Jen, have I got this right that you write a book that's called My Hot Doctor?
What?
No.
That isn't you. So the website's lied to me. I didn't think it would be when you said that, but the website has linked your name to it, and I was really
intrigued. Nice. That's good. That's good. There is another Jennifer Sanders out there.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that's actually not my name. My last name is Delorier, but nobody can spell or pronounce it, so I went with my middle name.
It took me a few years to figure out how to spell and pronounce it.
I was thinking it was your pen name, so yeah.
It absolutely is, but there is another Jennifer Sanders out there, and presumably she is the author of My Hot Doctor. Check it out today. I don't know.
Although we do have a hot doctor in one of our books, so we do.
So it all kind of interlinks in along with them.
It's all just a big circle of life.
One big giant melting pot. Yeah.
Yep.
For both of you, when it comes to writing, what would you say is, well, I'm really intrigued on how you do your research, because obviously the writing process for anybody is going to be difficult. It's not going to be a simple, easy thing you can do. So where does the whole genesis come from? And I know you've got a multitude of different books, but if we were, with different subjects, but if we took it to a flat point and just said, how do you where does it all initially start with? What's the spark?
For a book or for research?
Both.
For the books, for you and I, it tends to be we're like chatting, and then one of us gets an idea and we're like, oh, hey, I just thought of this thing and it would be so awesome. And then
we did that last night. Like, hey, what if we
absolutely snowballed.
Well, the Fae-Touched Chronicles got its start
years ago.
Kristen's birthday years ago. She said, you know what I really want for my birthday? Write me a story.
So I said, write a story with me.
Yes.
I was going to say, she wasn't asking for too much then with this demand if I wanted a story or something to be written with me.
She wasn't asking for me to just write it for her, but it was, I want to write a story together. So I was just like, all right. So I threw some things at the wall and started a story with what stuck. And that was what happened. And it went on and on and on and on and on.
I believe the prerequisite from me was there should be some handsome British guys and some handsome Scottish guys, maybe throw in an Irish guy. And that was like the prerequisite right there. Let me just lay that out.
Yeah.
I'll recircle that and the research behind this is what?
A lot of watching period dramas on the BBC.
So it's like, so can I both say that I probably got you pegged right, that you probably love things like Downton Abbey?
I have never seen Downton Abbey.
I've seen some of it. It kind of lost me after a few seasons. It was good. The production value was good. The acting was amazing. The writing was amazing. I just got to a point where they killed off a character and I was really mad and I was like, I'm done.
I should watch Downton Abbey. I keep meaning to watch Downton Abbey, but it just has never kind of crossed my screen. Talk to me about Miss Fisher's murder mysteries, though.
Okay, tell me more, because I don't know what Miss Fisher's
I have
murder
watched
mysteries
that
are.
until my eyes bled. It is such a good series. It's not Kristen's bag because she doesn't dig murder mysteries, but
ironically, because we wrote some.
Yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, but no, I really enjoy, and I'm a big fan of Jane Austen. Big fan of Georgia Hare. But when you said the research, I started to laugh because the way the research often works is we'll be writing along and one of us will realize that we're about to say something that may be anachronistic. So like, stop. And I'll go over to Google and be like, I don't know. I forget what it was I was looking at.
I do actually tend to do a fair bit of research. And when we decided that the character, our doctor, when we decided our Victorian doctor, who I was writing, was in fact a Victorian doctor, I went deep. I was like, okay, what would he have known about? Where would he have gone to school? What would this be? And I just like, and I have a brother-in-law who's a doctor, and we were talking, and he was like saying stuff. I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, how? I wrote a doctor in a book.
I mean, it's slightly different to practicing medicine. I think I prefer to put myself in the hands of someone who's practiced rather than someone who just read a book going, well, I kind of learn what they were doing a bit. We can probably whip the gallbladder out. You'll be all right.
Yeah, just yank it right out there.
So, I did similarly for one of our characters who's a lord. I did a fair amount of research about what that would look like and how he would inherit and what it would mean. So, we do the research ahead of time, but there's a lot of spontaneous research that goes on.
Oh yeah. Like mid-sentence.
What has been, because obviously you're not just writing a novel, you have a continuation series. So, but I was wondering, certainly we said about doing the research, what has been the most challenging thing you've had to research? What has been the absolute one that you've thought, dear God, should I stop now? This is a real buggeration to do.
I think I covered it. It was the medical stuff.
I think we're facing it because we're coming up on spoilers, but we're coming up on a war. Gonna have to do some research for that.
Write.
Yeah.
All the moving pieces.
Yeah. All the moving bits and what weapons would they have had, and
they used them. So,
and I've always wanted to ask this of any kind of author, certainly when they've got a successful run of novels, how do you keep it going? I mean, one is going to me as a the layperson who's not written anything, one is going to be tricky enough, but to keep going and creating this long run of things, how do you keep it fresh? How does it not become stale?
I mean, I think that depends a little bit on the book and just what's going on in life. For my part, I cannot stop my imagination from going. My parents once went to a parent-teacher conference, and they told me that the teacher was like, she's a really good kid. She's very smart and she's very quiet, but she's constantly daydreaming. So for me, my imagination just runs wild. I can't ever stop it. Jen generally has to kind of rein me in.
And vice versa. I mean, I really think that the first book is the hardest.
I agree.
It's hard not to keep going. It's hard to sort of be like, okay, it's time to stop, because the first book, you're establishing so much stuff and you have to do it in a way that is interesting and not info dumpy. and it keeps your reader engaged, but also sort of says, here's the world we're setting up. Here are the characters we're setting up. And once you've done that, the subsequent books kind of roll right along. And now that we've established the Fae-Touched Chronicles, I mean, we're talking about after we finish Sherwood Rising, we're looking at maybe circling back to Fae-Touched Chronicles. And we have no problem coming up with stuff that happens to these folks because we know them so well and we know the world so well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I really fall in love with my characters, and they become friends, and I'll miss them, and I'll want to know what's going on with them. So there's also that level of, I miss this character. What happened to them? I want to go back and visit them again. I get very attached to my characters.
That's a wonderful thing to hear from both of you, that you do become, that it becomes a thing that you can keep writing about. It becomes something that you are focused on. I'm going to ask you both this question then, and whoever wants to go first can answer it. Do you ever find yourself asking yourself you're dealing with the situation in real life? What would my character do to deal with that? How would they approach it?
All the time. Yeah.
How do you think I deal with real life? If I'm struggling with something, I will actually a lot of times put a character through something similar because it creates a safe space for me to work through it. And I mean, it was an absolute lifesaver after my husband died. It was this, and that was so public. I mean, you remember, Jen, that was very public locally. And it was like the worst thing in my life in a fishbowl. And writing my first trilogy gave me a place to say, this is how much it hurt. This is what I'm going through. This is what I hope for. But with the distance and safety of it being a fictional world, and it wasn't me and it wasn't my husband. And as I got further in the story, they became even less me and less him. But certainly things were inspired by. But it's a safe space to work through difficult stuff.
And you were able to control the outcome, which I think was important.
Oh, yeah. It was a very shaky time.
Yeah, sure was.
Imagine you could have created anything, any piece of writing at all in history. What would it have been and why? You could swap places. You could be the author of anything. She could write, Great Expectations, something of that sort. Who would you want to swap places with, and what would your spin on it have been?
I can tell you somebody contemporary I would swap places with. I don't think there's anybody in history that I would necessarily swap places with. And actually, more than swap places with, I just like to collaborate with Abria Iyengar or Brennan Lee Mulligan, who are both incredibly talented storytellers, incredibly smart, creative creators. And I would love to either be inside their brain and watch it work, or work with them. Sure.
Yeah, I don't think I would swap places with anybody else or want to create what they created, because the stories that we create are so just intimately important to us, at least to me. I wouldn't want to swap places, but I would love to collaborate with either Juliet Marlier or Tolkien, because I'm a complete fanatic for his stuff. So one of those.
We're both big nerds.
Because I'm not a writer, but you must find yourself in some position sometimes looking at things and thinking, how the hell has this person pulled this up? How have they pulled this sort of stuff together?
Yes, I do think that on occasion, with the two people that I mentioned and a couple of other similar creators, it just sort of go, that is wow, you've been playing the long game, and all of a sudden, it comes out of nowhere. But a lot of times too, I will go back and read something that Christen and I wrote, and I'll be like, hey, we pulled that off.
I do that too. I'm like, oh my gosh, we put those things in there, and I don't even know
look
that
at us. We were so clever, and we didn't even know.
Joy when we're unnecessarily, when we don't know we're clever.
That's good to hear, because I fear that if I'd written things, I was going over them, I'd probably start spending all my time nitpicking and going, I don't really know why I did that. I didn't like that. That could have been better. Maybe I should have changed it that way. Does that happen to you ever? That does happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not alone on that idea that would happen.
Nobody sees those versions, though.
Right. And creative people, I think, are their own worst critics. Like, creative people get in their heads and tear themselves out. We were actually just having a conversation last night after you messaged me, because I was like, oh, thank God we finally know. I always get in my own head about this, and I'm just sure they're going to hate it.
Oh, yeah, about the award. Yeah. Yeah, I was very relieved as well. And I don't know why I was not confident, but I was not confident.
It's every single one.
Do tell.
Every single time.
Come on.
We won our third gold medal from the International Review of Books for Lady of the Lock. The first two were for Seer's Choice and Healer's Touch, respectively, and we're submitting Agent of Change to see if we can make it a clean sweep.
Well, I will keep my fingers crossed. Well done. Very well done.
Yeah, me too.
What can you tell me about the wolf's head?
All right. So
what are you allowed to tell me? Sorry, is probably the correct thing?
Jen, I'm going to let you go because it started with you.
It's oh really? Yeah, I guess it did. So the Wolf's Head was born from, actually, we have a really, really outstanding cover artist. And she created a cover that just didn't just speak, it shouted at both of us, I think.
You saw it first, though. You saw it like a good year before me, I think.
Yeah, and it was so clearly a Robin Hood derivative.
Yeah, it was very Robin Hood-esque, but it was a young woman with a bow and in a cloak. And so then Jen came up with the idea for a second generation story. And I think, didn't it start out like she was going to be the daughter of Will Scarlet or something?
Yeah, it was totally different. Totally different than what it is now.
Yeah. So now it's Robin Hood's daughter. And we're, of course, trying to honor the feel of Robin Hood and the stories and what appeals to people out of those. But then we're also adding our own little twists and throwing in a little bit of magic, because that's what we do. You can talk now, Jen.
Oh, sorry. So we talked about, we basically sort of ran it back and forth and like, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about this idea? And we managed to come up with an idea for a book. And then we thought, okay, but what if we do this? That's going to be too long. We're going to need to break that out. And then, and then some other protagonists made themselves known, and the antagonist made herself known. And we suddenly had a trilogy. Suddenly had a trilogy looking at us. So, yeah, and it's called Sherwood Rising, set in the latter part of King John's reign. So it's after the events of that finished the Robin Hood legend, where Richard comes back and everybody everybody dances around the maypole. Patrick Stewart intones something. King Richard. So it's well after that. Robin is gone.
The landscape has changed for the merry men, the ones that are still around, because Prince John, now he's King John, he was known to be very petty and not great. So vengeful, yeah. So once he came into power, things got rough.
He had some scores to settle.
So from what you said, Jen, I'm taking it you're a Patrick Stewart fan.
Oh gosh, who isn't? Stupid people.
Right.
I love Patrick Stewart. Absolutely, I do.
Well, I can let you know on something that might be a little interesting to you. He used to actually live sort of close-ish to where I'm at. He had a holiday home. unfortunately, I never got to meet him. I only found that out once he'd moved. When his house went up for sale, it was listed as Patrick Stewart's holiday home.
So close.
Yet so far.
Yes, and only though people I know who I'd worked with had actually seen him around the town I live in, which was an annoyance to find out far too late. But hey, one of those things. What are you going to do?
I have a friend whose father knows Tony Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Robinson's still around. The father isn't. And that makes me jealous too. I mean, I love him too. So there's a lot of English actors that I really, really enjoy.
But not as much as I enjoy Ben Barnes.
No one enjoys anything as much as you enjoy Ben Barnes.
One of these days, he's going to stumble on one of my interviews and I'm going to be mortified.
My knowledge of Ben Barnes is that he was very good in Dorian Gray, which was I love that film. I don't think it was I don't think it lit the box office on fire, but I really enjoyed that as a film. And it's obviously a very good piece of writing as well. But we've digressed onto other writing. So you've obviously mentioned, you mentioned Patrick Stewart. We'll run with that. We'll run with Ben Barnes. But if you could take anything of the work you've done, anything you want, and turn it into a film, what would it be and who would be in it and why?
Oh, as if we haven't already cast all the books.
I kind of thought that might be the answer. Yeah, I couldn't see that as being something that wouldn't have happened.
Absolutely true. As far as which I would like to see, well, okay. So there's two answers to that question. If someone actually came to me for real and said, "Do you want to turn one of your books into a movie?" I would say, yes, please do Seer's Choice, because it's the first one and it establishes all the stuff, and hopefully people will like it enough to want to see the rest of the books. If somebody came to me and said, "You can only make one and you have to choose which one you want to see," it would probably be Healer's Touch. So,
and we do know that Luke Pasqualino would be Ross McInerney.
Absolutely.
Richard Madden would be Asher Burton.
Mm-hmm.
And the Spanish actor would be Quinn Rutherford, but I'm really not 100% sure how you pronounce his name. It's Y-O-N, so I'm not sure if it's Jan or John, but his last name is Gonzalez, so he would be one of our boys. I don't know who would be Geordie.
Well, initially it was Sam Heughan.
Right, yeah, and that's why I started watching Outlander, and I was like, okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the truth is that all of these guys are too old to play the characters that we just named. So I don't know.
Luke is young enough. Luke could pull it off.
Luke's in his 30s.
Well, no, I guess he's getting up there now.
Yeah.
Ross is like 28. We're like now casting and
I just want to say that I'm really impressed that now that I could have hit you with these questions. You were going, yeah, we've never really thought about that. We've not really got an answer to it, but you two have clearly sat and properly planned this kind of thing out.
Well, here's the thing, though. The thing that writing cooperatively, you have to plan out, you have to cast, whether it's an actor or whether it's just a photo that you found on the internet, or whether regardless of what it is, you have to have references for your people, for your places, sometimes for your weapons, sometimes for armor, sometimes for clothing, because we're trying to describe the same thing, and we don't, although we tease about sharing a brain cell, we don't actually share a brain cell. So, if I am like, here's this character, then she knows to describe him as a, blonde haired, blue eyed, lanky, like whatever it is.
Right. It just makes sure we have the same visual in our heads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's really, it is fun. But it's really important.
Yeah.
In order to sort of make the writing cohesive, because the biggest challenge, honestly, and I was thinking about this because we talked about it and we didn't set on this, but the biggest challenge is really making it feel like when you're reading it that only one person wrote it.
Right. And I've been told by people who've read the Fae-Touched Chronicles that we pulled that off. So, yeah. I mean, it does help that you were actually a part of my growth as a writer, because when we first met, I was only 19 and really just starting out. So you did influence. I was a baby.
Yeah, a little baby.
But it did impact how, like, the direction I went. So.
Yeah, what I think is funny is when a friend of mine would be like, "Oh, I know you wrote this bit," and I'll be like, "No."
Really?
Yeah, we
Interesting.
flew to people who thought that I wrote it, and I was like, "Nope, that was Jen."
Yep. And that's when you know you've succeeded.
There are now times where I will read something and I'll be like, "Did she write that?"
Oh yeah, I do that too.
Did she write that?
Wait.
And I'm not, and I can't figure it out.
Yeah. I have to look at whose point of view we're in.
Love it.
So this is very good. This is good to see that you guys are in such a great sync that you can almost, your writing can be mistaken for each other. So I'm going to ask the killer one. How do you get over disagreements? If one of you wants to go one way, the other wants to go the other. And please don't give me the sacred answer of, we don't. We never disagree.
Oh, no, we disagree.
We do. Generally, what we do is we'll just talk about it and we'll be like, okay, this doesn't work for you and this doesn't work for me. So where do we find that in between?
Let's find something. So we both have veto power. If something this is not going to work for me, this is outside of, I'm not willing to do this. I think it's a willingness to sort of choose the hill that you're going to die on. And we actually even use that language, like, I'm not going to die on this one. So if you really want to do it, we'll do it. No, this is absolutely really non-negotiable for me. I absolutely need this. We haven't yet hit an issue, and I don't think we will, where both of us are like polar opposites and we're both like, no, it has to be like this.
We've never.
No, I was just going to say, it's just a matter of being able to prioritize. Like, this is important to me. This is important to Christen. And knowing what works in the context of creating a story. And so you have to be able to say, like, I really want to do this thing. I think it would look really cool. I think it would be really cool. It makes no sense.
Right.
And if we can't make it make sense, then we're just like, well, I guess we're not doing it.
I will say one of the things I enjoy the most when we do disagree on something is when we have that back and forth in that conversation, and then we end up coming up with something even better, just using like little snippets of each. To me, that is one of the most gratifying moments, because that's when the creative energy is just going back and forth and we're like stacking it up on top of each other. And I love that. I have so much fun with that. Yeah,
I agree. And one of my favorite things is when we're both stumped on something, and then one of us will text the other, the all caps, "Oh, wait.
I have an idea.
I just thought of something." Yeah.
And do you have the thing that you sometimes hear musicians saying this, that it'll be the middle of the night, something will wake them up and they've got to write it down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although for me, it's in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Why? Is it always the bathtub? Is that an area of perfect creative
My theory is that it goes back to the womb.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to say, is it a womb thing?
I actually think that the reason that the bathtub is a good creative place for me is it's the one spot where nobody will ask me to do anything, or, nobody will ask me.
I laugh, but that is so sadly true.
It's the only place where I can go where I know no one will walk in except one of the cats, maybe. But
and then you message me while you're in the tub. You're like, I had an idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you both. Yeah, that's definitely better than. I think I'll probably just fall asleep. I'll probably just nod off. So I don't think I'd have creativity.
Yeah, I don't sleep, so that's
mine would be
a problem.
I'm definitely a nighttime creator. That's why I don't sleep. I'll be in bed, I'll be exhausted, and all of a sudden a character will be like, hey, are you asleep? Shut up. I have an idea. Yeah, that's one of the things that definitely happened to me. If it's a good idea I know I'm going to run with, I don't have to write it down. It's just, it stays in the idea vault. I'm the idea, or I'm the memory.
Yeah, so I mentioned briefly that I struggle with ADHD, and the truth is that I remember nothing. I have the memory of a goldfish, and if it's beyond 10 minutes, I don't know. So I have to run everything past Christen, and then I also need to write it down for my own reference, because I'll just be writing and then she'll be like, wait, weren't we going to do this? And I'll be like, shit, I'm going to go back and do it differently. So
sometimes there are times where I'll think, wait, weren't we going to do this? Oh, wait, no, this is good. This is good. I'm not going to say anything. And then I just let you go.
There's a lot of redirecting that goes on. So
Firstly, don't feel too bad, Jem, because if you've got no short-term memory, you keep forgetting things. You'd be perfect as a third co-host on this show because both Jem and I, we both had long COVID. Our memories are shot to hell. So for a lot of the time, we have to keep writing stuff down, or we have no memory of ever saying it or wanting to do it.
Well, if you ever need a backup co-host, I remember nothing. So,
but will you remember to be there and do the co-hosting?
Probably not, but it sounds like that's doing the job. So
it adds to be fair, that adds to the experience. 99% of the time, I don't think Gemma or I, well, I can only speak on my behalf, don't know what we're doing most of the time. So we just wing it and see what'll stick to the wall.
That's my life.
Perfect. Excellent. We found a great fit. You obviously, you've guided me both pretty well through the kind of writing process and how you come up with your ideas. Have you ever had anything where you've been really wanting to do it and you thought, nah, ain't going to work? Gone.
I don't know if I've had like a whole idea that isn't going to work. It's got to go.
No, we did. The squirrel guy.
Oh, yeah, we ditched him.
Hang on. Squirrel guy?
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
Go on.
Well,
I've got to know.
So the thing is, if we go into too much detail, it would be some huge spoilers for the fourth book in the Fae-Touched Chronicles. Okay. But there was a mythological creature that was going to be sort of it was going to be like a fawn, but instead of a goat, it was like going to be part squirrel because we wanted to mix it up. And we wrote a good portion of like almost the entire book. And then we're like, this character is not playing the way they need to play.
Oh, so it's like having Jar Jar Binks. It was just, it just wasn't quiet working. And go away.
Yeah. So we swapped it out for something else. And that ended up being a fantastic choice.
It was the key to the whole book right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I ask one thing? I know that I don't want any spoilers. I don't want to ruin it, but would it be squirrel size or human squirrel size?
Like fawn human size, like short,
sort of
human.
I don't know, small child size.
Yeah, hobbit size.
I'm not sure I'm not sure which is more terrifying.
Well,
it was
squirrel size or large squirrel size.
You know, on paper it seemed okay, and then the more we worked with it, the more we were like, "This is not working. This is bad. We need to not do this."
That being said, we do still mention the character, so we didn't actually
get a shout
eradicate the character, but it's the character's just mentioned by name, and it's sort of our own little personal joke to each other. You know,
but just imagine if you'd run with it, how amazing the book cover could have been. I mean, you have these.
Oh yes,
no, that would have put people off from like across the bookstore.
I think that would have made Sabrina quit.
She would have been so mad at us.
Yeah, we were already a big enough
cover
pain in the
artist. Yeah.
I think to be fair, now that you've told me that, I think a squirrel cover could have been very interesting. But you mentioned Sabrina because you have these absolutely, I mean, I've seen the covers. You have this wonderful, luxurious cover art. Where does this all come from? Because if I remember, Christen, some of the stuff is your stuff as well, isn't it? You've got
right. The poster behind her, actually.
This was my sister. I did the Twisted Path. That cover I did, except for the back. My sister did that. And then the trilogy, Soulbound, Soulfire, and Boundless, actually my sister did. So because she has a degree in marketing, but before she switched over to that, she was working on graphic design. So she made those covers for me. And the irony here is that on the second book, one of the characters' hair is actually my hair. It was when it was short. So one of the male characters on the second book, actually the hair on that character is mine.
Different. I like it. I mean, that is very different. Yes, you do. Generally don't hear that kind of thing happening, but
here's Wolf's head is behind you, Christen. Yeah,
right there. I did send that along though, so they'll have it if they want to include it.
But Sabrina's an amazing. She's just an amazing cover artist.
She's very patient with us.
Very patient. But also incredibly creative in how she approaches sort of when we're like, well, we want it to look like this, but also this completely polar opposite thing. And she'll be like, how about if and then she'll produce something. We'll be like, yes, that's what we meant.
And she's fun to work with. She's fun
she's funny.
Start with. So big shout out to Enchanted Ink and Sabrina.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
She deserves it.
I'd agree. They are incredibly good covers that you've got there. So, and is there a lot of back and forth when you have to make that decision on what it's going to be for the cover? Or does it rest with? I was going to say, does it potentially rest with her that you just say, I want this idea, run with it? No,
I can kind of where it starts. Yeah. That's kind of where it starts. So,
we go back and forth a lot before we even approach her, though, so that we know we're on the same page.
Yeah, we talk about it first. And then once we kind of have an idea of what we want, we go to her and kind of say, this is the concept we're looking at. This is what we want the wrap to look like. This is what we would want on the back. This is,
how we want the titles.
How we want the titles to look. And a lot of times we will go through, deposit photos or, any number of sites and just, pick out people that kind of look like sort of what we're thinking about. But she is real good at finding, on the cover of Lady the Lock, there's, and I don't know if you have reference to that, James, but on the cover of Lady of the Lock, there's the Charlie, the young woman, is that dress and that body was initially a 7-year-old girl.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. And Sabrina made it look completely different. She turned it. And we were just, she's like, here's the photo I used and here's what I did with it. And we're like, wait, what? Wait, no, that's okay.
That was the hardest cover, though. That was the one that we went through the most iterations of, because it was really hard to get the elements to work the way that they needed to work. For some, I don't know why that one was so difficult, but it was.
I mean, we wanted the Loch Ness monster. We wanted the lock itself. We needed, I mean, there were a lot of elements that we were sort of trying to put in place. Right. I don't know why that one was so hard, but it was. You're right.
Well, and I think part of it too is we started thinking we wanted one particular color scheme, and that just wasn't working. And then that's when we switched to the pinks and the purples and all of that. And giving it that lighter look. But of course it's Asher and Charlie who are the pain in the butts.
So is that probably for both? I mean, that seems to be one that you've really both been impressed by. Is that probably your favorite bit of cover art?
My favorite cover out of the 4 books we've written together, I think, would be Healer's Touch. Just because I am very attached to the character I wrote in that book. So that one's I am very attached. Ross never shuts up. He never shuts up, especially if there's cake. So that one's probably my favorite. I love the colors. I love the mood of that one.
Yeah.
And it's probably my favorite in the series.
I love all 4 covers. There are things I would change about the first cover.
Yeah.
Having gone through and done the other 3 and had the other 3 designed the way that they are. There's, if you look at all 4 of them together, there's one very stunning difference between the first one and the rest, and I would change that. But
it still works. I think
it still works. I like them all. I like all of the covers. I think my favorite. It probably is Lady of the Lock. Actually, we really bled for that one. So
we did. I mean, I like you said, I love them all too. I mean, there are elements of each of them. Yeah. I also really like Agent of Change. I have a thing for that outfit. I've got the girl, the ladies in. I'm like, that is the coolest outfit. I want to wear.
Very steampunk.
I know. I like it. And it's also like my favorite color. So
yes.
So I'm going to ask the kind of like the question that Gemma normally would always ask, and this, whoever wants to go first can ask, if you could have any superpower. I know it's a strange one to suddenly throw out, but if you could have any superpower at all, what would it be and why? I stumped you.
Oh, mine's easy. The power to
Go
heal.
first, then.
I would heal.
It depends on my mood of the day. I think it would be cool to be able to like pass through things. Like if I'm just going with like a basic superpower thing, I think that would be cool. Just magic in general would be awesome.
Christen, I would like you to put in for teleportation, please. I need you to just sort of be here more often, so it would be
okay.
It'd be helpful to me.
I like teleportation. I'm gonna change my answer because I like that. There are things I would do with teleportation.
Yeah, I mean, going anywhere you want in the drop of a hat, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think
addressing any frustrations about being stuck here.
I think I would go with either probably wishes, be able to keep making wishes if that's deemed a superpower, or time travel. And I was discussing this with Gemma once, but I think I probably went a bit too in depth because we're discussing time travel. So I said, well, if I could use time travel, I could go back and potentially say buy stock to invest in something, make a lot of money, and go forward, use that money for myself, but also use that money to help other people. But then you have to ask yourself the following question. In the idea of time travel, would you have, if you bought stock in, say, Apple really early on, would you then change the parameters for Apple to become what it became? So you would create a paradox situation where everything could completely and utterly
Butterfly
change.
effect.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, you might mess it all up for everybody.
And
it's the thing with time travel. It's tricky.
That's where I think Gemma asked herself in terms of the question, why the hell did I ask him that? Instead of just I could have had a nice simple answer, but no, he had to overthink it. You've created all these books, these wonderful novels. You have a fan base. What is your interaction with your fan base like?
I got asked for my autograph one time. That was pretty cool. Somebody came up with a book and said, "Can you sign it?" And I was like, okay. Sure.
Yeah,
my handwriting is awful, but all right.
I think the coolest moment I had with a fan base was at an event just this past summer where somebody came up and they were like, "You're my favorite author." And then they spent a lot of money on buying like every single book of mine that they didn't have. That was really cool.
I mean, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. And it's always fun when you get asked for an autograph because you're just like, me? Is there someone behind me? That's the first thing I do is like, who? Is there someone famous?
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely felt that way. Our fans are
lovely people. Lovely people.
That's so dumb. Our fans are great. We wouldn't be where we are without them.
No, we wouldn't. Because, if people don't want to read it, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's true.
You're not lying to me, are you, Jen? When you were saying that they're lovely, there wasn't a moment. You've not had any weird interaction.
No, it just sounds so
hesitation
dumb.
Where I wondered.
No, I'm absolutely not lying. Our fans are lovely people. Every single one of them. It just sounds so. The phrase "our fans" is a little bit.
Yeah, there's like this weird reality thing where you're kind of going, does this sound this is weird to say.
That's a phrase that is not in my vocabulary currently.
It's not something that you get used to immediately. It takes a lot of time. Like when I saw that you were going to ask this question, I was like, oh God, I'm always so embarrassed to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it illustrates you doing something right. And you produce a wonderful
and we
project,
have a
people
really
showing an interest.
The Fae-Touched Chronicles has a really broad fan base.
It does. Yeah. It does. I've been surprised by how many men have liked it.
That's what I was kind of getting at. Yeah.
I did not expect that, but what can I say? Our guys are irresistible, even as friends.
Or role models.
Role models.
Yeah.
But not all men are cavemen. We are in touch with our emotions.
I mean, that's fair. I can think of at least two that are not.
Yeah, I can think of a couple.
Yeah.
I think I can't go what's happening with me. I think I must be getting soft in my old age because I cry at everything. This never used to happen, but I now just cry at everything.
Quick, let's throw a book at him and see if it makes him cry.
Oh, well, an actual book would make me cry because it hits me in the face.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to throw it at him, I'm pretty sure you can make him cry.
All right, we'll hand it to him nicely.
However, I will say that this last award that we received for Lady of the Lock, apparently we made the reviewer cry. So,
no,
we were like, oh,
that's really
good.
And
that ruined falling asleep last night.
Oh my God. Yeah, they sent me the email at like, what was it, like 12:30?
It was 12:30 my time, I think. So it would have been.
Oh God, so it was like 1:30 my time. So the thing is, I have a brother who lives in Korea, and the time difference is just astounding. So I mostly talk to him late at night. And I was chatting with him, and then I saw an email come in, and I just happened to check it, and then I was like, ah! So I had to look and see what it was.
And then I got, are you still awake?
I was like, are you awake? Are you awake? We got another gold.
Yeah.
And I got back,
I know. Like, I don't know how many H's, but many.
Yeah, a lot.
See, my theory would be they send you them at these really unsociable times because they know it can have a real impact upon you when you see them.
What?
They don't want you to sleep. They don't want you to just like roll over and go, oh, that's okay.
I'm hoping that it's because they're the international review of books, that it's just a time difference situation.
Yeah. So,
but
certainly a possibility. Yeah. But I'm sticking with my idea. They want to have the most emotional impact they can have upon the people when they're telling them.
You could well be right. Yes,
So So you've obviously won this award. Congratulations! And
thanks.
For the future, what are the future plans for your work? What's going to clinch you the next award?
Oh, well, hopefully Sherwood Rising. My goodness.
Well, we still have to get Agent of Change in.
Yeah.
So Agent of Change. And then, hopefully Sherwood Rising. I eventually want to submit my book, The Twisted Path, and see how that one goes. In fairness, I wrote that by myself, but Jen actually did take a final look at it and make me.
It's gonna come out with it. There's no question you're gonna win something. No question. That's my
big
book.
Baby. Thank you. That's my big baby. And it was so cool because I actually got to meet the actor who I had mentally cast as the leading guy. I got to meet him. I got to have like drinks with him. So that was awesome.
Was it Ben Barnes?
Surprisingly, no, although he's frequently cast. It was Toby Regbo. So, because he fit the character perfectly. So I kind of just ended up basing it around that appearance, and I knew who the character was going to be. And
it's not always Ben Barnes.
It's not always Ben Barnes.
It's frequently Ben Barnes, but
frequently Ben Barnes. Ben Barnes is often cast because he's Ben.
Now, interestingly, we were looking at the future of what you're wanting to do and move into. If you were going to completely change into a totally different genre of writing, what would it be?
And I'm facing that now with working with a production company doing audio dramas. So I'm given they will pitch concepts to me and I can sort of pick if I'm interested or not. And I think the next one I'm going to do is more of a sci-fi type of a thing. And the team at Adventurous Ideas really liked the idea. I actually got to pitch it to them. So I think at some point that will be the story I move into, and it has sort of a Matrix meets Minority Report meets Westworld sort of a feel. And I'm a little nervous about it, but I like pushing myself. I mean, the Fae-Touched Chronicles was pushing myself because it was outside my usual sandbox. Like I went from high fantasy to writing Victorian era romance, and we had to pay attention to the history and everything. I couldn't just make up the rules. Didn't like the not being able to make up the rules. But then you let me have my way in Agent of Change. So I made up all the rules.
Yeah. Like, all right, let's throw it all out the window. I already write also contemporary fiction, contemporary paranormal.
Yep.
So I straddle genres already. If I were going to write another one, I have no idea.
One of these days, I'll drag you into high fantasy. It's going to happen.
All right. Well, so yeah, I write contemporary fantasy. I write Regency. And then there was the Victorian. So I don't know.
Very good at the period romances.
I do enjoy the
Very
period.
good
I
at
enjoy
that.
the contemporary ones as well.
Yeah.
It's just really easy to get dated real quick in
Mhm,
contemporary
mhm.
stories, you know.
I don't know. I don't usually read contemporary stories. I've read yours
Oh, I
because
know.
I love you, but because I love you and everything. But I do. It's your period work that I just think is so good. You just have this knack for creating really good, interesting period characters. Like you're really good at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, we're nice to each other.
Well,
In front of
that's
other people.
Yeah,
In front of
well,
other
that's
people.
the thing. Yeah, I'm sure you're scrapping like cat and dog when I'm not around. So,
That's right.
so you mentioned
I always
Kristen.
win.
Yeah, you mentioned Kristen that you've obviously got some audio work. If you need a smooth English voiceover, just saying, I'm here. I'm available. Jen, I'm going to ask the question because you mentioned paranormal stuff. And just before I say it, Gemma, I'm not going to tell my ghost story because I know you get very angry with me and threaten to remove me from the podcast if I ever say it again. Jen, have you ever seen a ghost? Have you had a paranormal experience ever?
Yes.
Please tell.
Oh
Because I
gosh.
can't tell mine because Gemma will kill me.
All right. Well, we don't want Gemma to kill you because
Nah.
that would mean that Gemma would have to go away for a while, and we don't want that. So, my mother passed away on the day after my son's first birthday, and the night after his second birthday. So the apartment that we were living in, the master bedroom and my son's bedroom were adjoining. There was an adjoining door. And he came in and woke me up and said there was a green lady sitting on the end of his bed. And I went in, and sure enough, there was a kind of an odd green glow that then casually wafted out of the room. And initially I thought maybe it had just been like the reflection of headlights on the wall, but it wasn't on the wall. I don't know. Anyway, I was very sort of like, well, that was weird. And I put him back to bed. And then the next morning he got up, and he was just 2. So he wasn't super articulate like he is now. But he pointed at a picture of my mother and said, "Green lady, mama, green lady."
Wow.
You've never
And I was
told me
like,
that story.
no, it's true. He doesn't remember it, but I sure do.
Yeah, there've been a few spooky stories. When I was growing up, there was a piano in my house, and at one point at night, and it happened to be in my bedroom at the time. And at one point I heard notes like keys playing. Let me tell you, when you're a kid and the piano just plays, it's very, very scary.
I'm going to be honest. I think it's an adult that'd be pretty damn scary.
And there was another time after my husband died where it was within the week between when he had passed and when we actually had the funeral. So I had taken his cologne to the funeral parlor to kind of get rid of the chemical smell because it really upset me. And the cologne was there. I was back at my house later with his sister and I think one of my sisters. And all of a sudden I went in the kitchen and I smelled his cologne strongly, like no question about it. It was his cologne. And so I sort of froze and I went, "Hey, come here." And I like gestured to my sister-in-law. I said, "Do you smell that?" And she's like, "Oh my God, yeah." And I said, "That's Dustin's cologne."
Wow.
And she goes, "Well, did you spray it?" And I said, "No, it's not even in this house."
Wow.
So yeah. So those are mine.
Where can we find your information about your books and any promotions you've got for future things, events you're going to, and publications, please?
All right. Well, you can go to the Boundless Fantasy website, which is my website, so you can find all of my books and the books that I wrote with Jen. And I actually do have a page that highlights some of your books, Jen, but I don't think I've got the latest one up. And at some point, I'm just going to have to stop because you keep writing. And
no, that's fair. That's completely fair. You can find my books on Amazon under Jennifer Sanders, but not the one with the hot doctor.
No.
Look for this face.
Yeah. Maybe you need to start. Maybe you do need to do a competing like hot nurse line of books.
Hot repairman. I've come to repair your pool.
And then, of course, like social media, Facebook. I'm grudgingly on Twitter and TikTok, but I kind of ignore them entirely. And I spend a little bit of time on Instagram, but I'm very picky about what I put up there. But Facebook and Instagram are the ones to contact me the easiest. We also have a con coming up, Smallville Comic-Con in June. So that'll be exciting. I'm really hoping that it all works out and you can come along. So
that's the plan. I mean, we were hoping that there would be some Philadelphia conventions that Christen could come up and be a part of, but there are no conventions in Philadelphia right now. So
sad day
for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Well, I will keep my fingers crossed for both of you. You are at some point able to attend the conventions together. So thank you for coming onto the podcast and taking the time to speak to me about your work. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you both. So without further ado I can never remember which is the correct terminology to use. Somebody at some point will correct me, I'm sure. Just want to say thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jen. And I wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you very much.
Thanks
for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.